She's coming back in a very big way in Diablo 4. And you know, she is a demon that scares other demons. She is the demoness of mental anguish. She's so terrifying to other demons that they're the ones who put the chains on her because she's so terrifying. And the heads are the heads of her, you know, like people that wronged her or things like that. But more to come on that in the future.
Why are Andariel, the Maiden of Anguish, and her brother Duriel, the Lord of Pain, back in Sanctuary when the other greater and lesser evils are not? And what exactly could the devs have meant when they said Andariel is coming back in a big way?
Looking for bail.
Since November, we've been speculating on who the final boss in Diablo 4 would be. The possibility always existed that one of the other evils would step up to be the ultimate antagonist. Even in the absence of the other three prime evils, Belial and Asmodan would step up to vie for power over Sanctuary and come extremely close. So could it be time for another of the four lesser evils to rise up to the challenge of claiming Sanctuary for the Burning Hells? And how does Andariel tie back to the Summoner and Lilith being back from the Void? And perhaps most importantly, is the Maiden of Anguish next in line for the throne in Diablo 4?
Hell is coming, brother. Hell is coming. Fear me.
Andariel's return is, as of right now, deeply shrouded in mystery, but several clues give us a little insight as to how she may have come back to Sanctuary before the Prime Evils. We spoke recently in another video on more clues that alluded to the identity of Magnus, the Pale Man from the Diablo 4 trailer. One key aspect of that discussion was a mysterious change in design from concept to production. The change in Magnus's adornments from a caduceus and Asclepius to a pentagram, which was revealed in the Art of Diablo to be associated directly with Andariel. Just one aspect that alludes to the involvement with the Maiden of Anguish herself. Another major aspect is revealed by the Diablo 4 lore devs on the Triune's involvement in Lilith's return. They said,
and speaking of buried, we have these ancient Triune cult ruins that radiate this dark power, sort of thrumming with dark energy. The Triune who was responsible for helping Lilith return to Sanctuary, as you saw in our cinematic, they also worship the Primevals, and they are hastening their master's return to Sanctuary.
And we'll talk more about that in just a bit and how it ties to Andariel. As we've covered in previous videos on the possibility of the Prime Evil's return, there are similarities in the symbols used to summon Lilith and those seen in concept images. From what we know about how the evils are brought to Sanctuary from an incorporeal state, a host body is actually needed. Since Diablo 3, none of the great evils have a physical form since their capture into the Black Soulstone, and unlike the lesser evils' previous arrival in Sanctuary, they likely won't be returning with bodies formed in the Burning Hells. So, some assistance may be required, unless Andariel reformed in the Hells very quickly, as she was the first of the evils to be slain in Diablo 2, therefore probably the first to re-resurrect. Some assistance may be required, which is where the Triune comes into play. But what interest does a cult that previously served 5 of the 7 great evils have in the remaining 2? Well, that's actually the point.
He's returning to Diablo 4. If you don't know who he is, his name is Duriel, and he is the Lord of Pain. And
putting together all of this information surrounding Magnus and the Triune gives us a pretty good idea on the Order's current standing. More than that is information given to us surrounding the Cult of Personality. The line, "prayers are largely unanswered," is a rather interesting choice of words. We know the cult is largely a surrogate for the Triune, much like the Coven was in D3. This is evident in the cult's general design, which correlates to other images released by Blizzard in their quarterly updates, and in the line from the image, "Lilith has spawned a new wave of cultists and worshippers." In the Book of Adria, located in the description of Andariel, is a passage that reads, "Others within the Coven/Triune have attempted to seek Andariel's favor, but none have ever been seen again. Now perhaps Lilith is a pawn in Andariel's greater plans, or vice versa. Or perhaps Magnus is the leader of a splinter group of the Triune seeking Lilith to save them from the machinations of the Maiden of Anguish. Or, most likely, he serves Andariel and has resurrected Lilith. If Duriel's presence is any indication, the prior seems to be very likely, but it's still too soon to tell. What is certain is the development team has big plans for Andariel in Diablo 4. But why?
I don't want to spoil any of the interaction that you're going to have or the impact that he has on Sanctuary, because that's something that you're going to find out in the story. But what I want to talk about is kind of our philosophy behind the designing of bosses in Diablo 4.
Why are Andariel and Duriel on Sanctuary instead of the burning hells ruling unopposed? Surely two lesser evils can handle the hells, especially as they are twins and work together. Now, it's a common misconception that the differences between the prime and lesser evils is the grand scale of power. In fact, what makes the prime evils so great is actually their synergy. Hatred begets destruction. Destruction begets terror. Terror begets hatred. And so the cycle continues, each one fueling the other, ever stoking the fires of power for their brothers. Every one of the great evils feeds off the atmosphere within their realms, and even Sanctuary that's reflective of their own aspect. Diablo from the fear that grips the corners of the mind, Mephisto from the animosity that grows from that fear, and Baal from the destruction that inevitably spills forth. The lesser evils do not have such a connection, so by and large, they do not command such level of power. However, they have proven that, unified, they hold the power to overcome the prime evils and have even forced them out in the Great Civil War known as the Dark Exile. That unity would not last though, and it was actually a plan by the prime evils, and Belial and Azmodan would actually come to blows to decide who would lead the burning hells. Now, while Andariel and Duriel would be cast aside, knowing the eventual return of the prime evils, the twin evils would align themselves with the primes in an effort to avoid their inevitable wrath. Also, Andariel's own realm of anguish is adjacent to Duriel's realm of pain, as she would feed off the mental anguish that Duriel's physical pain would inflict. So they work really well together. So they're a match made in heaven. Andariel alone may not be enough to stand up to the prime evils, but she's no fool. Adria describes her as ambitious, cunning, and dangerous, but she moves in the shadows and latches onto the plans of other demon lords as she sees fit. Now, with that in mind, what could be keeping the twins out of hell? Andariel hasn't had a great time since her return. According to the art team, Andariel's design has a bit of story to it. Other demons had chained her and the heads of those who wronged her. So, straight up, this begs the question, who could have possibly wronged Andariel, especially as she was off Sanctuary much of the time of the previous game's events? And why did these heads seem not to be of demons who chained her, but rather humans in nature? The last time Andariel was officially seen was during the events of Diablo 2. A group of heroes had felled her beneath the rogue monastery where she took up residence. Could it be that decades later, Andariel, in her spite, hunted down the heroes of Diablo 2, never forgetting their treachery and displaying their heads proudly like ornaments before wreaking havoc on Sanctuary itself? It seems we will no doubt get answers in Diablo 4 as the developers took the time to allude to this specifically. The second thing of note is when looking at Andariel's new state and her design, gone is her succubi appearance. Unlike Duriel, who seems to be true to his original design except with the addition of a mouth and his bloated torso, which swallows heroes, that's going to be a gnarly fight. Andariel, however, seen in Diablo 4, has foregone a lot of her original design choices. No more is her almost naked voluptuous body, her cloven hooves for feet, or her 4 scorpion-like appendages dripping in poison to ensnare and then kill unsuspecting victims with her allure. In place of a normally voluptuous figure, her body is ashy and covered in what appears to be runes, and it also appears that she has no back appendages of scorpion tails dripping in poison, but instead it looks like some type of contraption bound to her back. Now, contrary to the developers saying Andariel is back in a big way, it looks like other demons have actually chained her to this contraption and seem to indicate that she, a proud demoness of anguish, may be suffering anguish herself as we meet her. as we see on the sides of her back piece are foreboding looking heads breathing fire, which Andariel is confirmed to hate. The last thing that Andariel wants to be near is any type of fire, as we've seen in D2. And it looks like she herself has been burnt physically, kept in check perhaps by unholy fire. Lesser demons have bound her so she cannot be free, and rune words to lock her in place which have been etched on her body. Is Andariel, unlike Duriel as we've seen, initially a prisoner in Diablo 4? Or is this a new design choice alone, and she will have more agency than we believe? Now, a big reason Andariel may be on Sanctuary is perhaps someone more powerful may be taking up residence. With all the Lords of Hell away from their domains, the Warden's absence allows the inmates to play. And there is one inmate who isn't a demon in Hell who should never have been left alone. The angel Inarius, which is heavily hinted at from concept art to sneaky images in the Diablo 4 reveal trailer. Coupled with the focus on Worldstone shards, this spells out a serious problem centered around the former head of the Cathedral of Light. Now, given the heavy focus on the Sin War, it only makes sense for Inarius to secretly be working in opposition to Lilith, and his time in the realm of hatred has undoubtedly filled him with hate and spite, moreover than was already there. A likely scenario is Inarius was somehow freed from his bounds as his jailer is no longer there, and locating Hell's stash of Worldstone shards amassed his own wealth of power. Enough to say he could command an army of demons large enough to gain the upper hand on other evils like Andariel and maintain power over that domain, chaining her as he had been. Perhaps he bound her, but not her brother Duriel. Now the question would be why? And perhaps a combination of Inarius' failure on Sanctuary. There's also the possibility that Inarius isn't playing alone, or there is another unknown force. Now, we can't rule out Lilith joining Inarius against the mounting armies behind Andariel and Duriel, but would that really make sense? The more likely scenario is the summoner bearing Andariel's mark has been sent by Andariel, the Maiden of Anguish, as she has been bound to resurrect Lilith, as she is the only known demon strong enough to boot Inarius out of Hell or whoever else is there and help maintain a seat of power on Sanctuary and the burning hells for the twin evils. But that's just a theory. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I can't wait to read all the comments saying I miss those demoness titties. I know they're coming. In my Diablo 2 playthrough, all of the comments on like Andariel were just about how hot she is, and you know it's a huge departure from her succubi role where they would lure you in with the sex but follow up with the death. And by the way, I'm going to be making a video on why sex and death seem to not be a focus anymore in Diablo 4. Some of the reasons why I've found that, but that is a video for another time. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and hit the bell if you want more Diablo 4 videos. Also, join us on Discord. The crusade is growing, brothers. We have over 400 members ready to slay Lilith, or maybe join her. Depends on how good of a succubus she is. I'm going to get demonetized for that. Anyway, thanks for watching, and until next time, traveler.